Welcome to the Social Chameleon Show, where it's our goal to help you learn, grow, and transform as the person you want to become. Before we get started today, I'd like to have a little disclaimer. If you're listening to this with children or people that are sensitive to adult topics and subjects, I would suggest you save this for later or skip it altogether. Yeah. This book talks a lot about adult behaviors and topics that may not be suitable for sensitive people.
Yeah.
But the book we're reviewing today is Civilization, and it's on Discontents by Sigmund Freud.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit, if you guys don't know Sigmund Freud, I like to think of him as like the godfather of psychology a little. He was a psychologist, medical doctor, and the father of psychoanalytics, and is generally recognized as one of the most influential and authoritative thinkers of the 20th century. He was a Austrian neurologist and the co-founder of the psychoanalytic school of psychology.
Ooh.
There's a lot of words.
I didn't know all that good stuff. I just kind of know from, I guess, my college days.
Mm-hmm.
You take that Psych 101 or whatever, and it's like, yeah, I thought we were going to be talking about Freud and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, this is kind of cool. I mean, alongside with, I think, like Rogers and Maslow, those are kind of like some of the psychological godfathers, whatever the case might be. So.
Right, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff they put out, and even holds true to this day, which is really surprising. A lot of science stuff, it seems to evolve and evolve and evolve, but these things really seem to hold true.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think we were talking about it the other day. Like, this book was written like almost a century ago.
Right.
I know
the PDF copy I was able to get a hold of was from 1930, when it was first published and translated from German. And you have the hard copy book was from the 60s?
Yeah, from the 60s, yeah. So, I mean, obviously from like 1930, like that's 2018 here. You know?
Right. So, I was thinking, I was like, when did he write this? In 25? When did this research start? In 1920, 1910? Like, when did this research even start? Like, who knows, right? It's
no idea. No.
We're looking at least 90-year-old text.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I guess that's something to dive into. But anyway, I guess about getting into the whole review of it or whatever. I kind of took away from the book that I guess basically Sigmund Freud's talking about the unhappiness of man per se.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, it's kind of weird that I don't know if it's a premise or whatever. I don't know if you're a college student or a professor. Like, don't kill me. I don't have a degree. I have my doctorate in psychology or whatever. I'm just kind of taking away from the books I've read and the things that I've seen in life. But, my premise or take on the book is that he's saying that man has a lot more tendencies to be unhappy in life than happy. He even goes into the whole thing about like pursuing happiness and ways to go about that. And he talks basically is civilization, as you could say, quote unquote, like technology that man has created, right? We've created civilizations to try and overcome this unhappiness that we have inside. And then the book kind of talks about, I guess, the duality of that, right? Like, we as man want to conquer things and be part of ourselves, and civilization helps with that. But in many ways, it also takes us away from our being itself. It's kind of, I guess, contra-intuitive, something like that. I don't know. Is that kind of what you got out of the book?
I didn't. That's interesting, and it's interesting the our two perspectives. Like, especially you took this classes in college,
right?
I remember taking a psychology class, but I really just checked out. But I took it away as something different. It's like when I reading the book at first, I was like, what is this guy trying to get? Like, what is really kind of confusing in the beginning? Like, what is he talking about? Like, where is he going with this? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I was like, it all leads up to our pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
And it's like all these years later, like even some of the older books I've read, like from the Roman times and the different Stoic stuff, it's like, it's the same shit, like over and over. Like, why haven't we learned this? Like, we keep chasing this happiness. And it's like, the more things like, oh, if we do this, we're going to be happy. If we get this, we're going to be happy. And that's like, to me, that was kind of like the whole thing of the book. It's like all these things you want to do, like, chasing this stuff, you know, it talks a lot about butt sex. It's like, if you're getting enough butt sex, like maybe you're going to be happy. And it's like chasing all this stuff and, you know, chasing all these things and like trying to get all these things and building these communities and building these denser populations. We're going to be happier if we're more together. And it's like all this, and it's like, nobody's happy.
Yeah.
So we just haven't learned, like all this time, like we just haven't learned, you know, that these outside things aren't going to make us happy. But we keep chasing.
All we really need is butt sex. And
I mean, that's really, I mean, half the book is about butt sex. And I kept trying to understand, like, why does this keep coming back to butt sex? I don't understand this.
Well, I guess, again, this is, you know, from my college professor days speak. Like, you got to understand that this book was written like in the 1960s, like 1930s, like, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, that's when it was translated and published. Yeah.
But we're here in the 2000s when like gay marriage is okay.
Right.
But you have to understand that throughout civilization, right, and its discontents, like that kind of stuff was forbidden.
Right.
Like you couldn't even talk about that. I mean, back at the time when this book was published, like women covered themselves. You know what I mean? They don't walk around in that skimpy clothes and stuff that we see today with their ass hanging out. Like they wore proper dresses, their arms were covered, many times their ankles were covered. You know,
even bathing suits were very conservative and showed no butt cheeks, no cleavage or anything like that.
And it's just that thing. And that's kind of, you know, I was talking to one of my friends the other day. I was like, oh, you're talking like you know Freud. I was like, no, I don't know Freud. I just know, you know, just about him. Like he has these things and it's conceptual things. And he understood back then that we have this, you know, these urges inside of us, right? And it's many times people take it as a sexual connotation, but he just did about that, you know. You gotta love Freud. He always finds a way to slip those kinds of things in, right? Like Freudian slip, right? That's kind of where it comes from. But he's just be talking about, and then like, oh, you know, so when we talk about, you know, our urges and how a baby longs for it to suckle on its mother's breast and shit. Like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, that threw me off. I was like, did you just say? Did you just say that?
It's like,
I expected something, I guess, a little bit more conservative, being the time frame it was done and knowing things weren't talked about then. But that, I guess, was the point of him talking about this stuff. Was like,
and
we all have these thoughts behind closed door. We're all doing and thinking these things.
Yes.
So stop bullshitting yourself.
And nobody's saying anything.
Right.
That's kind of the thing, right? I mean, that's one of the things he talks about in the book is like, as a community, right? And when humans evolve, like we create civilization so that we can accomplish all these things, right? Like we can create the telephone, we can create stuff like well, back then it wasn't the internet, but you know, nowadays it's like we can create things like the internet and satellites and rocket ships because we come together. Yet when we come together, we kind of hide a part of ourselves, right? And that's kind of, I guess, you know, he goes back and forth about the book. And I guess I kind of understood, I guess, reading a lot of college literature and reading this literature as part of like, if someone saw me reading the book and like, oh, are you taking a psychology class? I was like, no, man, I'm just reading the book because read it. Like, oh, that's you know, I think I like left it on the desk at work or something, and like somebody picked it up and started reading it. He's like, yeah, I'm not really sure about some of the stuff that's in that book. And I was just starting.
Yeah, I had to be careful. I was listening to it in the car and the kids were in there. I was like, maybe not the book I want to have to explain to my 8-year-old what butt sex is.
Yeah, you know, suckling on mother's tits. Like he just kind of about that. And then also, I guess if you're gonna get into this book, you know, as you can tell how we're trying to do this book review, like it's kind of all over the place. I think the original thought process behind the book just kind of comes from Freud writing in his journal or possibly his diary about his conceptual thoughts on civilization.
That's what I had a feeling. I felt like, and I guess it's not a book at the end. It says it's more like he publishes as a paper or something like that. And it sort of it feels like he's working through things chapter by chapter, like you know, like working through these things. Like these are the things I'm seeing. Like what is this? And he's talking about the words he invents to describe these things and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's basically he's just kind of going through a thought process. So, you know, when you read the book front to back, again, you know, you have to kind of use a lens to like look at this book. If you don't look at it through any type of lens whatsoever, and you just kind of read it, there's all kinds of things that you can do. It definitely has a more philosophy feel to it. It's not really, you know, close-minded or forcing you to any one certain opinion on the subject matter. It kind of just broadens itself out and explains, oh, we have this side of the coin, we have that side of the coin, and kind of opens itself in that manner and just kind of proceeds on in that manner. Sometimes, you know, like you said, you're reading the book and you're like, what is he trying to say? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's just getting out there with his thoughts.
Personally, I had to go through the book 3 times. The first time I was just like,
yes,
I'm confused. All I can think about is, why is he talking about butt sex every other chapter, paragraph? I'm like, I had to go back and I'm like, I'm missing something, because only thing I took away from this was butt sex is the way to happiness. And I'm like, I don't think that's the intent of this book.
No, but again, you know, that's kind of one of the things that, I mean, he's not known for butt sex, but Freud is known to bring about those inner thoughts, right? Those inner things. And it's actually funny too, because in college, like, we learned about it, and like in this book, like, he'll talk about stuff like ego, and like, you got to be careful, like, how Freud uses ego versus how some of the other like, the other books you're talking about, like Dr. Wayne Dyer,
right?
He's talking about ego as like our accomplishments, right? Like the things that we accomplished in life, like we use those as part of our ego, right? To build up our ego, to show our importance in life and that kind of thing. Like, you got to be careful, because, you know, Freud does, like, as you said, he makes up words, right, to describe what's going on. But for Freud, when he's talking about things like the id and the superego and the ego, like, he's talking about our subconscious mind, right? And our utmost wanted desires, right? For love, and especially sexual love, like, and all its perversion. I think, like, that's the kind of like language he has, right? And you're like, is he talking about sex again? Seriously?
And the superego and blah 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 and butt sex.
Yeah.
What? I'm like, I think I'm misinterpreting your talk on ego.
But that's, you gotta love Freud, because like, he kind of does that stuff. But anyway, I mean, basically, we do have these, like, our instincts, right? Like, our natural urges, like, to want to get out there and, you know, explore whatever it is we want to explore. I you know, again, trying to get off the whole sexual premise, let's just say you're hungry, right? And you don't have money. You want to get out there and you want to steal that food. Like, that's inside you. Like, that's your instinct, right? Like, for survival, is I want to get out there and I want to grab that food. And that's kind of, you know, the urges that he's talking about on all levels, as inappropriate as they may be. So, you know, it's just kind of out there. But again, getting back to the whole premise of, you know, overcoming our happiness, like, as humans, we have to put those things on the side. And that's what he's talking about. Like, you know, the super ego will take over control and understand that these feelings of happiness that we get are transient, right? And they come and go, and they require things from the outside world, things outside of our subconscious, things outside of us. And like, you know, those are the parts where we have to subdue what we're thinking, right? In order to get along with society or some crap like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's very honest, and it gets in your head. You're like, you know, these are the things that you're naturally thinking of. These are your biological drives for procreation and for community and for family. And he's like, listen, that's the way it is. It's okay. Like, nothing wrong with you. We all have it. We don't talk about it. And in his time, it was, taboo to be speaking about these things, especially in a public forum or engaging in these things publicly. But he's like, listen, it's cool. Like, we all have it. You want to suck on our mother's teat and have butt sex? Like, it's okay. Like, don't worry about it. You know, and I like when he talks about, like, you know, we're trying to build these communities and bring people together, and it's just like making things not work. And it's like interesting. I was like we want to be a community, but we get to so packed together that we kind of relinquish the community aspect of it, and we just come back to the self again.
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of hard because, when two people, like, let's just say you and I, right? Like, if we want something that's opposing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want something from me that's going to take from you,
Mhm.
that hurts society. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Right.
The fact that I want to do something on this show that's going to hurt you, you know what I mean? Like, that
Mhm.
disrupts the whole flow of the show.
Right.
So, like, we kind of have to come to some type of agreement. Is okay, I'm not going to cross the line and overstep my boundaries so
Mhm.
that this can continue. You know,
Right.
what I'm trying to say?
No, I do. I do. And that's, maybe some things that are kind of missing nowadays is that communication to say, hey, this is what I'm after. These are my goals. This is what I'm trying to get or do. Like,
No,
what are you doing? Like, how can we work together? Like, I'm not trying to steal from you, or maybe if I talk about this a little, maybe, like, this is what I'm trying to do. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, I'm not trying to do that, but I can help you with this. And,
yeah, I think in today's world, especially with everything that we have going on, it is a lot more open and honest.
mhm.
I just don't know if today's world we're a little bit censored.
Yeah.
So the fact that we don't, go about the way Freud does in explaining things,
Mhm.
um, especially in today's world, we got a lot of PR stuff going on.
Right.
But there are a lot of advancements, right? Like I said,
Yeah.
we have gay marriage; it's a thing,
Mhm.
and just kind of out there. But you know, getting back to thyself and the whole premise of the book. But I mean, Freud talks into these things about happiness, right? And I guess I got some quotes down here, whatever. But
Mhm.
life life brings us too many pains, right? And in order to bear it, there are perhaps three such measures, right? He's talking about powerful deflections, which cause us to make light of our misery, right? He's talking about substitutive satisfactions, which diminish it. And then three is like intoxicating substances, which make us insensitive to it. I was like, dude, this guy is like talking about stuff that is like, it's like, wow. He's like, we
Yeah.
deflect it, right? Or
Right.
we'll substitute other things, or we'll sort to drugs, right?
Mhm.
Or some type of outside, intoxicating substance. I was like, damn, like this is his three conclusions from back then, and it's
Right.
like,
And it still holds true today. This is what we do, right? Like, this is going to be painful, avoidance, or
right,
this pain has happened. Let's kick back a few, drinks, or let's get high, or whatever it is, and I was surprised that he was talking about drugs and stuff back, in this time. But I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. But going into the book, and I'm like, are you talking about drugs? Like,
yeah,
what? This is dope. Like, but like, there was such a big period in time where it was so taboo to study drugs and use them in research and consume them yourself. And now this has kind of come back around where, magic mushrooms and psilocybin and MDMA and all these types of things they're being studied. There's benefits to this, weed and stuff. It's like there's things that are here. Like, we're now kind of back to it's okay to talk about it a little, and microdosing and stuff, especially in like the Silicon Valley area. This is like really trendy and popular. Going to on these ayahuasca trips and all these things. Like, we was so taboo for so long, and it was like really surprising. Like, whoa, you're talking about this stuff too. Like, oh, I thought it was really cool.
Again, like, he's out there, he's raw, and he's just out there talking about all these urges that we have inside. And it's just, to me, I kind of appreciate the openness and honesty about it. I mean, as perverted as it may be, just hearing about these things, right? People kind of get anxious about, or and probably have the disclaimer at the beginning of the video. But he does talk about other things as well. Like, he talks about creating grand illusion, right? Like that things don't exist, or they're not as horrible, right? Another quote he's got here is like, in the last analysis, all suffering, if nothing else than sensation, it only exists as far as we feel it. Like, it's like kind of crazy. Like, it's true.
Yeah, it is.
If I look at you, I don't know what you're suffering from.
Right.
You don't know what I'm suffering from.
Right.
We can tell you, we can kind of explain it, but it's basically this feeling that we have.
Right.
He even goes further to talk about like defense against suffering is no longer brought to bear on the sensory apparatus, right? Like we're talking about, it seeks to master the internal sources of our needs, right? The extreme form of this is brought about by killing off the instincts as is prescribed by worldly wisdom of the East and practiced by yoga. I was like, dude, this guy's like talking about like over a century ago, well, close to a century ago, 80 years ago. Right. He's talking about things like this, like yoga and, you know,
meditation and being mindful. Yeah. When I read that, I was like, damn, it's like, damn, like, why was there such this gap in this knowledge? Is the thing that just boggles my mind a bit. You know?
I don't know if it's a gap per se, but I mean, the questions that he's posing here, how to deal with, you know, man's suffering and unhappiness, like you're right. It's been 80 years and, you know, it's different for everybody how they overcome this stuff. Right. There's no real magic pill that we can take to overcome our suffering, you know? And
I've heard some magic mushrooms that have some promising research.
Yeah, you know, I heard from somewhere on some show on the internet that butt sex is the key to everything.
This is the show, and this is what I heard too. It really just goes back to butt sex. I mean, maybe a little mushrooms and some butt sex it just might be society's cure.
I don't know.
You heard it first here, folks.
I'm glad to know that you reading this, like, it kind of like sums up. I was like, dang, my psychology teacher was right. Like I was versed, you know, I think we were talking about this the other day too, is like some psychology professors don't even use this literature anymore.
Yeah. I was
how offensive and how out there it is.
There was a podcast or something I was listening to. I don't quite remember. And the professor was saying, he's like, things I taught 5-10 years ago, I cannot do anymore because I'm so worried about being sued. I've been already told that if I do these things, I will be fired, even though I'm a tenured professor, because somebody in my audience could be offended by it. No, we can't even speak of it anymore. So this institution of higher learning, where you've come and signed up for my class to learn these things, I cannot teach you because I am going to be sued and or fired.
Yeah. And you know, and rightfully so. I mean, that's why, again, we got disclaimers all over the place. But, you know, it's just, to me, again, the way the book is written is just, he's kind of out there just talking about subjects here and there, how unhappiness is created, you know, how the things in our mind are going. He puts words on them like ego and id and super ego to describe, you know, our innermost desires. But I find it also interesting that he talks about fending off, you know, this defense against suffering is one of the things that we can do it is through employment, right? Talks about one gains the most if one can significantly heighten the yield of pleasure from the source of physical and intellectual work. Like, I was like, again, this was written how many years ago? And he's talking about people who can get in there and find happiness at work. Like, it's crazy. Like,
that contribution to society, that giving back to your fellow man and neighbor, that purpose or whatever it is you want to categorize it as, is a means of finding happiness. And there's things that we really did lose a lot of over time, you know, as you know, we've gotten to the style of work and things that we've, you know, done and squashing ourselves into these communities.
Yeah. I mean, he's got a lot of stuff in here too. I also like where it's talking about love. Like, I was like, damn. Of course, because it's Freud, he's gonna be like, I mean, sexual love. I'm like, dude, why you gotta do that? You just like, you take a perfectly good sentence and then you just throw that in there. And
by the way, if you were confused what type of love, it's butt sex. Like, listen, I mean, let me get real to this. It's butt sex.
It's like, why you gotta ruin it, dude? Why you gotta ruin it? But anyway, one of the quotes here that I got here, I'm of course speaking in the way of life, which makes love the center of everything, which looks for all satisfaction in loving and being loved. The weak side of this technique is easy to see, because it's saying otherwise no human being would have thought of abandoning this path to happiness for any other. But he says we are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love, never so helplessly unhappy as when we have lost our loved object or its love. And it's like, he's kind of got a point there too.
Dang. But yeah, that loneliness and then that depression and go back to what he was saying earlier, and you get stuck in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn to substances to, you know, cope and get out of the pain. And yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, he even talks about man's suffering is sometimes self-inflicted because of things like this. Like, we will get into relationships, or we will reach out there, you know, and basically put our hearts on the line. But that's kind of where we get hurt the most, right? If that person betrays us, or, you know, those kinds of things, like it'll hurt us detrimentally. I mean, but he even goes into, like, I guess, you know, he talks about civilization and its grandeur, but he also talks about like simple times when, you know, we switch from just getting out there and clubbing women and bringing them back to actually creating like a family. He's like, any family model that's out there, it's beneficial to us as a human. You know, it's like, yes, you know, but he says, ironically, right, when we get into monogamous relationships like marriage, like, it hinders our urges for that wonderful word that he loved. No, just
yeah, and it goes back to butt sex. Like, as the man leaves his wife and children at home, seeking the leisure and pleasure of another.
I know, right?
Sodomy. I was like, what did you just say? The audiobook is great because it's like this British guy. It's hilarious.
Sodomy.
And then it's like, and the pursuit of sodomy. I was like, what? Just go back to butt sex again. Like, where, how does this happen?
But I guess there, and then at the end of the book, like, he's talking about, like, that's where, like, Freudian slip comes from, right? Because like, he'll just be talking on this philosophical rant and then just like throw it in there, like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, like, and then we like to end with butt sex. What?
Can't do it. But I mean, like, it's you know, I think it's a philosophical piece because it just shows like the duality, right, of, you know, our way of trying to avoid happiness is to create these civil measures and to create these societies to overcome that unhappiness. But in the end, it just cycles back to being unhappy because we have to subdue so much of our subconscious that it makes us unhappy to be in that union or to be part of that civilization. Like, I feel really philosophical right now.
And, you know, that's the thing I related a lot of this to is in the Stoic writing, you know, about these things. And these are the things they warned against 2,000 years ago. Like, you know, if you're so coveting of your loved ones and your possessions, and you know that something's going to happen, someone's going to steal it, your kids are going to die, your wife's going to die, they're going to be broken. If you're not prepared for that, you don't understand that, you're just going to be crushed when it happens. Like, versus knowing, like one of the exercises or one of the thoughts or within the Stoic was like, I have this cup, it's already broken. I know this already. Like, because one day it will be broken. And when it happens, I won't be shocked. Like, yep, today's the day it actually became broken. You know, even in the Japanese culture, when it does become broken, they use gold to put it back together to show like the beauty in that this broke, and now look at its new form, its new character. They use the gold to glue it back together.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you glue it back together, like, it's still not the same cup. Like,
no, it's not, but it's something new now, and it's got a new beauty and a new thing to it, and you know it's gonna break again. And it like the first time I heard that, I was like, you're a fucking moron. The last thing I want to think about is my kids are gonna be dead. Like, I'm hoping that I don't have to see that. But when you start to go down that path and say, okay, you know what? Yes, these things can happen, and like, it's gonna suck, but I'm having these thoughts now. I'm preparing myself. Like, yes, these things are going to die, and I'm not going to suffer when they happen because I've already thought about them now. And I'm going to live more in this moment now, not trying to hold on to this future death, but hold on to this being, you know, this presence here now. And you know, not being naive that this isn't going to happen, but also understanding, like, let's be in this moment now and not try to avoid, you know, death or whatever it be.
Yeah. And this can even like bring us back to our 12 rules days, you know. It's like, you got to find a balance, right? Like, you can't order, like, yes, as Freud says, we are never so defenseless against suffering when we love, but that's also what brings us the most joy,
Right.
and it's kind of interesting, right? Like, it's like you're going to go all in, right, to get the most benefit, yet at the same time you are completely defenseless and being blindsided, right? Like, it's just, yeah, I don't know, like you said, your kids are going to die, or
Right. That's why I think I like having that stoic perspective of being prepared for that, like, and thinking about understanding it, because I mean, I spend a lot of time really, I don't want to think about this subject because there's no ending, there's no conclusion. You can't think of what is next, because nobody knows what is next. No matter what you believe, maybe you can be okay with that. I couldn't, so I would avoid, like, I don't think about that shit because I don't know what's next. Like, I would, like, if I died today, what's next? Like, that was a thought that was in my head all the time. Like, I couldn't come to grasp with that. But going through this exercise, and it's like, shit happens, but I'm going to prepare myself and I'm going to be here now. That is inevitable. And that's cool.
Yeah. And, Freud talks about it too in his book as well. It's like, this struggle within us or whatever causes us to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, our evolution of this is to overcome this initial happiness. But for some reason, it just keeps coming back around full circle.
And that's the thing that I kind of like that he sort of alluded to or touched on or whatever. It's like, listen, suffering is part of life. Pain is part of life. Like, you've got to understand that and know, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to come through this? There's techniques, there's just different things. Like, think about this stuff and know that this is life and you cannot avoid it, but you've got to come around it eventually.
Yeah. And, I mean, not trying to be a depressing episode again or whatever.
We can get back to butt sex if it really
if it really entice you, but even then, like, again, giving back to that, it's like, you're gonna go through that process of love. Like, yeah, that's gonna give you the most satisfaction, but at the same time, you're gonna get hurt. Like, it's crazy. It's
it has a potential for the greatest tragedy.
Yeah, and it's like, man, like, what what do we do? Like, but I don't know. Again, the book is very open-minded. It's very philosophical in the way that it just reaches out in every and or all direction. So it's easy to get lost in there. And the words they use, I guess, because it was written so long ago, like, you think it's like he's spelling center CENTRE, yet it's still grammatically correct, apparently.
It is written quite a bit back, and it was translated from German.
Yeah.
So there's that as well. Those nuances in the languages.
I don't know what the PDF looks like, but on the real hard copy book, like, some of the things are, like, the translation notes or the prefaces at the bottom of the page are longer than the actual page itself. I mean, this is a poor example, but, like, you have the regular book, and then you have these notes here at the bottom that kind of, like, I was like, damn. Like, okay.
Yeah. In the audiobook too, they said some things in German and then they gave the translation of it.
Yeah, no, they have the same in here. I was like, I can't read German. I don't know what that is.
It was nice to hear the audiobook because then somebody read it to me and I was like,
oh, okay.
This is great. Like, the narrator, he read the German and then the English. It was pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, this one I just kind of skipped because I don't know how to read German. I was like, I don't even know what that says. But yeah, let's go to the translation. That's cool.
Right.
Yeah. So,
any other things in here you wanted to touch upon?
Yeah, I know. I mean, this is probably not the greatest episode because the book itself, if you were to just take all of it, like, there's no way to come to a conclusion, or you basically just kind of take thought by thought and go through the process of what Freud is going through as he's writing this paper or essay or journal, whatever the case might be, and just kind of take these interesting concepts and just kind of, it's like things that make you go, and it's like, it just kind of brings light to, like, yeah. And it's ironic that over the time span, like, a lot of what he's saying, like, maybe it's just my age or something, but at this point in my life, like, I can relate to a lot of the stuff that he writes in the book. And I'm like, I was like, yeah, I can see where he's coming from on that. And I'm glad that he's asking this question, because I myself don't know the answer to this question either, you know? And I think that's what you're saying, right? It's like,
Yeah.
all these years, these questions are out there and we still don't have answers for them. Like,
yeah. Even on top of that, not only do we not have answers to some of these questions, some of these things that he warned us of or told us about, we don't even do or ignore. We haven't come to terms or found a solution or whatever it is to not live this way and understand these nuances of life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, he just goes into all kinds of stuff, like talking about like communism, like he talks about like all kinds of stuff in this book.
Yeah. And that's the thing I really like. When he's talking about communism, I was like, I've had this exact conversation in that same thing with him. I never knew he had talked about it that way. And people are like, you're a fucking moron. And I'm like, do you even understand? Like, you know, because he was saying that, and I'll paraphrase, I guess, or whatever. I'll say the terms I have said it is yes, communism is a great concept. Everybody's equal, everybody's free, everything's shared.
Yeah.
But in reality, that's never going to happen, because we all have the super ego, like he likes to talk about, or whatever these things, our desires, our drives, our things that are going to, you know, take over that. And that's been the downfall of communism. That doesn't work. Like, great concept, bad in practice. But yet we really want that as society. We want everybody to be equal, and not the sense of race and nationality, not the type of equality, but the financial equality and the economic equality.
Contribution wise, right?
Right.
Really to contribute to society equally and to receive from society equally.
Right. But to everybody to be that uniform equality, that's not the same. Your desires aren't the same as my desires, your ambitions, my ambitions. And we got to come to terms with that. And people are like, oh, you're dumb. That's stupid. We all should just be in this utopian society. And it's like, that's such a you know, misconception. Like, you don't quite understand the human being and our desires. That's why some people stayed in their little tribe and others ventured off. And that's why we've spread across the entire span of the globe, because everybody's had their own choices and things that they wanted to do over the hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because like, you have people who've lived in communism, and you have people, you know, who live in democracy. And like, you know, same thing, he talks about religion here as well. You know, certain religions, and you know, they try to overcome all of these things and happiness. Like, he talks about a lot of fair subjects that you know, that come around. One of the other things also, I guess, is he talks about well, I don't know, this is my translation of what he's saying, is like, he talks about love again. You know, he's gonna slip his favorite word in there, but he's also talking about, like, we have different types of love, right? And it's like, we have, you know, love for our sexual partner, yet we also have a love for like a family member or someone of that nature. And like, I kind of remember one of the sermons or whatever I was listening to, and it's like, yeah, like, in the English language, there's only one word for love, right? And it encompasses like all of these things. But in, you know, in the Greek language, they do have different words for different types of love, which is interesting. But
that's interesting.
But at the same time, it's like, yeah, like we have different types of love, right, in our heart. And of course, this is the kind of thing that leaves us open, right, to the most disaster in our life. But you know, we do have love for our family members. We do have love for our sexual partners. And again, you know, he talks about creating marriage, right? And like getting on that thing. It's like, marriage is good because it unifies that and protects us. Yet at the same time, we are inhibited to only one sexual partner, which also frustrates us as humans. Like, it's crazy. And it's like, so suffering is life. Yeah, I don't know.
Unless you sneak out and have butt sex. I'm just quoting him loosely. I'm just loosely quoting Mr. Freud there, Dr. Freud. I'm just saying.
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna have to speak to my wife about this and see that.
Stupid.
It's for science.
It's for science. Psychology. But I mean, an interesting part, I mean, in getting into the whole thing, he also talks about like love thy neighbor, right? Like,
that was one of my favorite parts in the book.
Yeah, like when he's talking about the whole religion thing, like the commandments of love thy neighbor. thy enemies and stuff. Like, I was like,
yeah, he's like, love thy neighbor. Bullshit. He's like, fuck that shit. He's like, that's the worst line ever written. I was like, woo. I was like, dang. He's like, that shit ain't possible. It is stupid. I was like, oh. I was like, dang. He's like, never mind your neighbor. Love thy enemy. Like, that's somebody that you got a relationship with. Like, you got to figure this shit out. I was like, oh shit. Like, dang.
yeah, like
He went in hard on that too. I was like, whoa. I had to rewind it a couple of times. Like, wait a minute. I think I heard you wrong.
love your enemy.
I was like, is this? I was like, and I started thinking, I was like, is this that, like, you know, keep your enemies, you know, closer kind of thing? Like, where is he going with this? Like, and it was, even that was like loosely open-ended. Like think about this. Like,
yeah,
fuck your neighbor. He don't give a fuck about you. You don't even know this motherfucker. Like, but your enemy though, watch out for that motherfucker. Show him some love. He's got your number. I'm like, ooh.
You might want to participate in that so that he's like less retaliative on you. Like,
yeah, like let your neighbor go mow his lawn. He don't care about you.
You know, but like, again, like I just find it interesting that, you know, out of all this like small, like 150 pages or whatever this book is, like he just talks and grasps on all these subjects that are interesting, and I think every human being maybe possibly thinks it. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's fun to, you know, I'd say this is, if you're interested in this, if you're this far in episode, like pick this up. It's a short, I think there's like 8 or 9 chapters, and they're really short chapters. The audiobook is pretty quick. Yeah. But go in there and like listen to this and like start to make your own decisions, make your own judgments. Like something that really can challenge your thoughts and assumptions. Like, you know, we should always have loosely, you know, held assumptions in the form of being able to have them changed or amended or whatever. You know, we shouldn't be so rigid and like, this is what I've believed for 37 years and nothing can change, no new data. Like, you know, strong, you have those strong convictions, but have them loosely held so that you can adapt and come and stuff. And I think this is an opportunity to go in and like have those things challenged and start to think and you know, and am I loving in the way I could be? Am I spending too much time on things and people that don't care? And ultimately, am I having enough butt sex? I mean,
it's got to get back. So yes, also if you're, you know, going to read this book, there's, you know, I like it, number one, because I, you know, went to college, so I know a little bit about it. So I kind of went into the book knowing a lot of things about it before reading it. If you're not ready for that, like you might just be like 2 chapters and you'd be like, what is this guy talking about? Like, I don't understand. It's weird. But
it took me the second read to start to like really get around what he was talking about.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like one of those books like you kind of just bypass the negative things and just kind of like get to like the part where he talks about the questions and, you know, posing theories on all of these different things like religion and communism and stuff, and just, you know, go to those sections and just that would be my advice. Go to those sections, read it, and just kind of overthink it and just be like, yeah, you know, because it could bring some open-mindedness to your life, I think. And, you know, also get you to get out there and pose those questions to the world, and also to look inward. So,
yes. And that's my conclusion of this book is it's where it comes from. It's happiness comes from within, and you're the only person in control of that. And I don't understand that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I'm good with that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm good there too. You know, this is really the ending of this episode is it's really for you guys. It's what you want from this, what you want to take away from this, what you want to gain from it. And I hope you guys go out there and read something. It's a quick read and start to think about these things. I will link to the book in the show notes at thesocialchameleon.show for you guys that are interested in taking a look at this. And then on this month for the giveaway, we are doing the Waking Up app, a 1-year membership subscription. I don't really know how it's categorized. If you guys want to get into that, it's a really great app. Like I said, Freud, 80, 90, 70, 100,000 years ago, he's talking about this. Meditation is one of these avenues of approach to suffering, to finding that inner peace, to finding that happiness. And Sam Harris in the Waking Up app, I think he does an amazing job. A lot of other people, Tim Ferriss, if you guys are aware of him, Dr. Peter Attia, and some of these other people that I'm aware of, they are absolutely in love with the app, the same as I am. If you want your chance to win a 1-year subscription to this. Currently, as of this month, the subscription is at $60. February 1st, it goes up to, I think it's $130 a year. So if you're interested in getting into it and you don't want to try your luck at the giveaway, head over to wakingup.com.org, I believe, or the App Store, whatever, iTunes or Google, whatever, get yourself a copy. But if you do want to win, head over to thesocialchameleon.show/giveaway. We'll pick one winner at the end of the month for a 1-year subscription to the app.
Cool. Awesome. All right.
I think we're just going to end it here. No challenges or nothing.
Again, this book is out there, so I don't really know what to come to a conclusion, but basically, I guess the challenge would be, get out there and kind of think of the things that, bring you happiness, and think of the things that you're not happy with. And you might find that they kind of like go around in a circle. You try to overcome this happiness with something, and then eventually you become unhappy again.
Yeah, this is an open-ended one. It's up to you. It really is. It's really up to you. Here's some thoughts. Here's some guidance, maybe. Other than that, it's really up to you. And if this is something maybe your friends or family or others want to engage in, maybe you guys want to have a little group talk about this, bounce ideas off each other, whatever, share this with them. Let them know. The best way you can support this show is by sharing this, by liking it, subscribing on your favorite, podcast apps, checking us out on YouTube. All week long, you guys can follow us at The Social Chameleon Show on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all those type of wonderful places. For this and all past episodes and show notes, you guys can head over to thesocialchameleon.show. Until next time, keep learning, growing, and transforming into the person you want to become.